Thank you for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist Jerome D. Love. We are committed to teaching you how to build wealth so that you can build your community. At the Black Money Tree, our goal is to empower wealth creation and create economic self-sufficiency in order to empower generations to come. Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never enjoy. Season is powered by Wells Fargo Bank. Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
We're back live at the NAACP Image Awards, Cigars and Stars, and I'm really excited. We're joined here with the one, the only, Lanny Smith from Actively Black.
Yes,
Man,
sir.
thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
joining us here on the Black Money Tree Podcast. This is a special edition. We call it Money Tree on the Move.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
we're brothers. You know
Yeah.
why? My first business was actually a clothing line.
Really?
When I was in college, I was 19 years old. I used to work at a rental car company.
Okay.
I said, man, I don't want to work in corporate America. And I wanted to start my own business. And my cousin had come up with an idea.
Okay.
And it was called Goo Gods. And Goo
Goo
Gods
Gods,
stood
okay.
for get up, get out, and get something.
Okay.
So he didn't know what he was going to do with it. I created a logo. I put it on some t-shirts. And I was in college at the time. I started moving them around my campus. I'm an alpha, so I put them in black and gold. The
Okay,
Bruhs brought them in black and gold. Then the AKs wanted them in pink and green. So all throughout the state of Texas, I had a distributor out in Michigan that was moving my product.
Okay,
So
okay.
I thought I was gonna be the next FUBU. You know, that FUBU was popping at the
Right,
time.
right,
So
right.
talk a little bit about your business. What inspired you to get started? And talk about some of the challenges.
Yeah.
We can talk a little bit about the fashion business
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Talk a little bit how you get started.
Well, there's been a lack of black ownership in the athleisure wear space, and it's an industry where there's some huge brands that have profited billions off of the backs of black culture, black talent, black consumerism, but have not reinvested back into the black community. And on the heels of 2020 and a lot of the performative declarations that we saw a lot of these brands making, man, I decided that it was time for us to build our own and to stop asking for a seat at their table and to build our own table. So
So you started
yeah.
in 2020?
November 27, 2020, Black Friday is when we launched Actively Black.
Wow, man, that
Yes,
is
sir.
amazing. See,
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of you because one of the biggest problems, and correct me if I'm wrong, I
Yeah.
don't know your business, I don't know
Yeah.
your business model, but one of the biggest issues that I had back then, the internet really didn't exist. It wasn't big.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
you got drop shipping, you can get on-demand type orders.
Yeah.
I was having to order all this stuff, put it in my trunk, drive it to different shows, carrying inventory,
Yep,
and it
yep.
never failed. If I had a red and white, and everybody saw the red and white, and I would order more red and white, then they want the blue and green. And
Yep,
then I have to
yep.
order more. So inventory was a
Well,
tremendous
let me tell you
challenge.
something, man. Inventory is still a challenge.
Okay,
we,
okay, all right.
We're struggling to keep up with demand right now. The initial inventory that I bought to start Actively Black, I thought would last the first 3 months, and it sold out in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we've been playing catch up from the beginning. But you're right, the internet and social media has really changed the game, and especially for a startup brand like mine, we can find our target audience, speak directly to them, serve that audience in a way that before social media and internet, I don't know if it would have been possible. So,
Yeah. So what were you doing prior to this?
Man, I was a professional athlete, man. I signed
Really?
with the Sacramento Kings in 2009.
Okay.
33 days after signing my first NBA contract, blew out my knee, had 2 microfracture surgeries, and my NBA career was over with just like that. I actually launched my first brand called Active Faith in 2010.
Yeah.
Launched out of my mother's house, became a very successful brand, but I decided that I wanted to also build something for black people.
Yeah.
And that would reinvest back to the black community. So that's what Actively Black is about.
So talk about before that. I assume growing up, you played ball.
Yeah.
Your whole thing was to get to the league. You're gonna make a bunch of money. You're
Yeah.
gonna buy your mama a house. So talk about the transition mentally.
Yeah.
How do you go from thinking that was gonna be your life, blowing out your knee,
Yeah.
to then rebuilding and rebranding yourself into something? Talk a little bit about that transition.
You know what? First and foremost, my faith is what pulled me through that moment, because it was a dark time for me. Losing the game, especially something I had given my life to since I was 4 years old. That was my dream, to play in the NBA. So I struggled with depression. I struggled with an identity crisis of trying to figure out who am I without this basketball, right? That's who I've been my entire life, Lanny Smith, the basketball player. And the support of, you know, my mother, my family, and really my faith in God and believing that, you know, if this is being taken away from me, then God has something else for me. And that's what really kind of pulled me out of that dark place. And then, you know, making that transition to being an entrepreneur when I didn't have a plan B, you know what I mean, was, it wasn't easy, but what I learned was I had to humble myself to know that whatever I'm starting over with, I'm gonna have to start from the bottom. So that ego has to be left at the door. Like, no matter how many points I scored, that doesn't matter in this next thing that I'm getting ready to do. So I literally went to YouTube University, man. I spent hours and hours watching videos how to code my own website. I didn't have enough money to even have an agency build my website, so I learned how to code my own website. Spent hours on YouTube learning how to work Photoshop and Illustrator because I don't have no business background. I don't have no design background. I literally self-taught myself everything that I'm doing today. And so being able to add that skill set after, you know, the first dream died is something that really helped with my transition.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say that. When I speak, I always say, you see me on this stage, you see the product, but you don't know the process.
Man.
Many people just look at, you know, like I always use the example too. My son told me he wanted to play basketball. Into his 6th grade year, he says, "Daddy, I want to play basketball."
Okay.
All right, cool. You know, so you know what I do what a dad do. I take him to the park.
Yep.
You know, we running laps, we doing push-ups, and he just got tears in his eyes, and he's upset because all he know is Steph Curry and KD. He want to do crossovers. He want to shoot threes. But he don't know that you got to work your way and build your way up to that. So he just thought that I was crazy. But there's always a process to get you to where you want to be. And the problem is that people that are good at something, they make it look so easy that they think that they could just step in and do it.
There's no overnight success. You know what I'm saying? This process to even get to this point has been, you know, over a decade's worth of grinding and learning, failing, making mistakes, you know, learning all those things. But to your point, most people, you know, it's like when a skyscraper is being built, they don't start building up first. They gotta dig, and they gotta dig deep because you have to build a foundation that will be strong enough to be able to hold this structure that's gonna shoot so far up in the sky. But most people, when they driving past that construction, they don't pay attention to them digging down. They're like, oh, this construction. Then one day you look up and there's a skyscraper. Everybody can see it then. But it started below the surface before anybody could see any part of that process. And so, you know, for me, you know, there's a lot that people don't see. And even once you start to have certain levels of success, that's not permanent, man. This is something you gotta pay your dues every day, and that's, you know, we're hungry, man. We're trying to build a global brand for our people, so that's what we're doing.
Awesome. So tell me, growing up, what were you taught about money, finance, wealth? Were you taught any of that?
Ooh, man, I did not have any financial literacy growing up. You know what I mean? My mother, small country girl from a small town in Louisiana called Jena, Louisiana. Her parents both stopped school in the 5th grade. They were sharecroppers to go work in the fields. She was the first person in our family to go to college, to graduate from college, became one of the top computer programmers in the state of Texas. You know, a black woman, early 80s in Texas, computer programmer, just an incredible example and superhero for me. But I think she was in that process trying to figure things out herself. You know what I mean? A single mother of 2 boys. You know, she was just trying to survive and provide for us to get a better education and have opportunities that maybe she didn't have. But that wasn't something that we was learning growing up. Financial literacy wasn't it.
See, it's funny. We know how important money and finance is in our own personal lives, but we're not taught it in high school, and many of us don't have it at home. Do you have children, and what are you doing to change that?
Not yet. But I plan on it, and you know, I think being able to impart on them some of the experiences that I've had, some of the lessons that I've learned, and letting them understand it's a long game. Like right now, I think one of the issues is a lot of people, especially on social media, selling the get rich quick things. You know what I mean? Not understanding, once again, even building wealth and being able to understand what you're building for, what your financial goals in the future is a process.
Yeah.
That's not another overnight thing.
Yeah.
So for me, continue to learn in this business world, and then also you got to understand, I'm a former athlete.
Yeah.
At this age that I'm at now, I've seen some of my boys who made it, who signed big contracts, who, you know, are now struggling financially. You know what I'm saying? So even just learning lessons from, you know, the examples before me and around me is what I'm going to say.
It's funny you say that. My pastor said a couple of weeks ago, he said in many respects, all this money that they give a lot of these athletes is a sophisticated stimulus program.
Because it's coming right back.
Yeah, because it's coming right back.
Yeah, I mean, there's some unfortunate circumstances that I think all play a part in this, right? Most of these guys are 19, 20, 21 coming into money that most people will never see in their entire lives, right? But then there's also something that we call a black tax, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these kids who are getting drafted, they are the only financial hope in their entire family. Their entire family is depending on them.
Yeah.
And then their neighborhoods, their people around them that are depending on them. And so you're almost instantly looked at as a savior.
Yeah.
There's other cultures who don't necessarily have to deal with that burden as well of, man, I'm not just building this for myself and my future, but man, I gotta take care of everybody else with me too. You know what I mean? And so there's some survivor's remorse that guys have, knowing that they made it and feeling like, well, I don't want to seem like I forgot about where I came from. I forgot about the people that helped me.
Yeah.
And you overgive, not understanding like, you know, what impact that can have on your finances.
Discipline that you got to have and understand that if you can't take care of yourself, you can't help nobody else. You know. But no, this has been wonderful, man. Now I know you got a lot going on. Tell the people where they can find you on the Instagram or what's next. I know you got all kinds of websites and the new gear. So tell the people where we can find you.
ActivityBlack.com is the website. @ActivityBlack on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of the social channels. We're building something that's owned by us, that's for us. Shout out to Damon John, the founder of FUBU, who has given me so much knowledge and become a mentor to me. What we're building couldn't have existed without what you built first. So,
So thank you so much, man. Thank you for joining us on the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Thank you for
all right,
having me.
man.
Thank you for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast,